Good night. Good night, my friends. Good night, my family. I've come to feel as if everybody now in St. Joseph is my family in one way or another. And let me begin by saying that I am on this platform on my way out. And the first thing I want to do is to thank all of you, for standing with me on this journey for the last almost 23 years. It has been that long, and I know it doesn't seem that long. I probably look as though I've been around that long. Somebody reminded me that when I first came to St. Joseph in 2002 seeking the nomination, I had black hair, and I was a youthful looking man. And after 23 years, this is what you end up with. But I don't mind. It has been 23 good years for me, and I hope that it has been 23 good years for the people of this constituency. I would never have been able to make it this far without your support from day one, and without you renewing that support in the election in 2008, again in 2013, 18, and 22. But the time has come when I feel that I must hand over to somebody who is younger than I am, somebody who has perhaps a lot more energy than I do, but also somebody who I believe is now ready to take what he called the baton and take the constituency of St. Joseph to even higher heights. If there's one thing I have to say, is that I have found throughout the 23 years, that every single one of you, and you've had occasion to be a little vexed with me sometimes because I wasn't able to get this thing done, or I wasn't able to get that done. But on every occasion that you've interacted with me, I have enjoyed your affection, I have enjoyed your warmth, I've enjoyed your generosity, your kindness, and I've also enjoyed your patience. And that patience has now, I believe, and thank you for saying it, Ryan, that patience has now seen St. Joseph rewarded with a significant amount of projects. Some you know about, some are in the works. Some of the projects you've seen, if any of you have gone down into Ariel Bottom, you would know that we've suffered with a bad situation down there for the longest time. And I know that a lot of people, including me, felt that it was just a simple thing, a simple project, go and dig a hole and put in some concrete. But if you actually visited that area, you would see the millions and millions of dollars that have had to be poured in so that when that project is finished, it will last us for 2 and 3 generations. Everybody felt that Lane Bridge was easy. I used to quarrel with Public Works and tell them Lane Bridge was easy, until I started visiting the location and understood the complexity of what was required to get Lane Bridge to where it is today. But it is finished. And we in St. Joseph are finally, I am able to say, beginning to see the fruits of our labor and seeing a fair share of government resources spent in this constituency. And I am able to tell you tonight that I have the commitment of the Minister of Public Works, Deputy Prime Minister Santia Bradshaw, that the work on Melvin's Hill Bridge will begin on Monday. On Monday. And I know that it comes in the middle of an election season, and you may feel, man, look, you know, this is just another election gimmick. But let me tell you, I remember going under Melvin's Hill Bridge in 2008 with the then Democratic Labour Party Minister of Public Works, I won't call his name, and they carried him all under Melvin's Hill Bridge to show him the situation that that bridge was in. And they were in government for 10 years and would not even take a second look at it. Santia Bradshaw said to me, Dale, we are not going to go and just do a slapdash job. We have to design the bridge. The engineers have to look at it because it has to last the people of this constituency 50 to 100 years. And it's unfortunate that it had to be closed because of the deterioration of the bridge. But I'm so proud to tell you that on Monday, the demolition of the old bridge will start. And you know You know, because you could see that there were engineers down there doing tests and a variety of things. So this is no election gimmick. The work started on the bridge. The design work started on the bridge long before it even deteriorated. But that is going to be delivered. How many of you have driven down Coggins Hill? Coggins Hill was one of the worst roads to traverse in this constituency. Coggins Hill is now like brand new. And again and again and again, we have done things in this constituency, not with any fanfare, not with any boasting, but step by step, day by day, I have been able to get some things done in this constituency that we can be proud of. I am so proud of Hillcrest Civic Center, Hillcrest Community Center. It is probably the best installation owned by the National Conservation Commission in the entire country. The best. And it belongs in our constituency. It belongs in our parish. After many decades of complaints about the clinic, we were able to get virtually a brand new clinic done. And I know speakers tonight have spoken about the reservoir. I well remember, Plecky, Christmas of 2016, I was up here with you. And people were in tears because there was no water. There was no water. Isabel, who was buried today, I remember talking to her. There was no water. And we said we were going to fix that problem. And we have been able to address it. And we now have our own reservoir, 1.5 million gallons. These are things that have happened because the Barbados Labour Party is not just committed to the people of Christchurch and the people of St. James, they're also committed to the people of rural Barbados. How many of you have driven down Horse Hill lately? Horse Hill is almost completely repaved. But our problem is that we have the issue with the slippage. And so it is not so easy to fix our problems. Randy, I know you're going to get a lot of heat about this. People will want you to solve this problem today. But you're going to have to ask them to be patient. And as an engineer, you would know that dealing with our roads, dealing with our infrastructure is not like in St. Michael. In St. Michael, you go, you scrape off the tar, and you pave it, and everybody's happy. When we do works, they have to be able to sustain the next heavy rainfall, the next set of slippage. And because of decades of neglect, there is a lot to do. But I know, Rand, that because of the foundation that I have been able to lay, you will get to see a new road at Coconut Grove. We started it, but because we needed to get designs done, we had to pause it. You, Rand, will be the MP who gets to open a new road at Coconut Grove. You, Rand, will be the person who gets to be the MP to open up Fruitful Hill from top to bottom. I wish it could have been done during my time, but I have no regrets. I hope that I have been able to build a foundation upon which you can continue building and which will make the people of St. Joseph proud. So I thank you for your support over the years. I mentioned Isabella today, just now. I was really sad to have to be at her funeral. But I remember in 2022 election, I came to this school, and I know that Isabella by then was living in St. John with her daughter. And I was the most surprised person in the world to see Isabella coming out of this polling station and come and give me a big hug and tell me, I went and do it. I remember in 2018, I think it was Dina was in hospital. And Dina came out. They had to give her a wheelchair, and Dina came out and came up here and voted. These are the unsung heroes of St. Joseph. These are the individuals who have grown with the Labour Party from the time they were in their 20s, some of them even younger, and have kept the faith with the Barbados Labour Party as they have seen Barbados grow from strength to strength, as they have seen this constituency develop bit by bit by bit. And as I thank you, I want to thank those of our soldiers, those of our champions, those wonderful men and women, people like Clayton, who was only buried on Tuesday, who was always a solid rock of support for me as I had to deal with difficult issues. There was never a time I visited Clayton that he didn't have a good and encouraging word. I'm sorry that these individuals will not get to see the fine young man that is being presented to the people of St. Joseph as the next member of parliament. But I know that in the same way they supported me, Ryan, they would give you, if they could, their blessings and your encouragement. The last 8 years in Barbados have not been easy. You've had a lot of very difficult things to address. And I want you to know that the government is not a government that stands back and watches its people suffer. We understand exactly what you're going through because we are going through it ourselves. We understand the challenges that the increase in crime has presented to you and to us and to our country. But our solution is not to bury our heads in the sand. Our solution is to buckle down and take hard decisions and deal with the issue day by day by day. And if you want a comparison, it is easy. The increase in crime didn't start now. I well remember a former commissioner of police during the last administration having a press conference and saying, we are having a problem with gangs. This was in 2016. We were not in government. The Commissioner Griffith, had a press conference. He said, this country is having a problem with gangs. This country, all then, was having a problem with the firearms pouring in through our ports. We were having a problem with the robberies. We were having a problem with the brazen killings in broad daylight. These are not things that started to happen since 2018. They were happening from long before. But look at the contrast. The contrast is that we have done whatever was needed to do to deal with the problem, and we continue to do it. And I can give you a long list of things we've done. The Barbados Police Service is now perhaps one of the best equipped small police services in the region. The budget of the police service is higher now than it has ever been in its entire history. We provide the police service with every single thing that they ask for. And that is why I have to support Mayor Motley the way I do, the way I have. Because every time I went to her with the commissioner and said, Prime Minister, we need money for this, she said, get it. Sometimes we said we want one, she said, get 4. Sometimes we say 4, she said, get 8, because the first 4 might go bad. Every step of the way, this administration has taken the hard decisions that were required in order to keep Barbadians safe. And I don't want you to lose faith, because there's more that we intend to do. And a lot of the things that we do as a government are not necessarily going to be things that you will see. A lot of the issues we deal with are not going to be in your face, like roads and tall buildings. They're going to be things that are happening behind the scenes, some of which I will never be even able to tell you about. But we do them in the sure and certain hope that they will protect the people of this country. I have had a rough 8 years as Attorney General. It has been difficult, very difficult. I've had a lot of sleepless nights. But there were nights that were spent poring over laws, making sure that Barbados had the kind of legislation that it needs in order to wrestle the problem of crime to the ground. We have passed more legislation dealing with crime and dealing with law enforcement and law and order than any other government in our history. We've done that. But of course, a country with all the laws, but without the tools to enforce those laws, is just a country with a lot of paper, a lot of writing. But we've given the law enforcement agencies the tools to enforce those laws. We've sent them overseas for specialist training. We've brought in specialist trainers to conduct training here. We have increased the space, the capacity of the training school so that we can recruit more police officers. In fact, we were hoping that this month we'd be able to open the 2 new dorms to accommodate another 60 police recruits. And I'm so proud that more and more women are joining the police service. There's no doubt in my mind that the women of Barbados are as good at policing as the men are, and they're coming forward at a faster rate than the men are. And we have to say to them, welcome aboard. These are the things that we've been doing step by step by step. But if I have to say a few words as I leave the scene, it is to say to each of you that we all have a role to play in law enforcement. I've said it, if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. We've said if you see something, say something. We've said don't hold back giving evidence because one of these days it will affect you. We've said that you are a part of the solution, and if you're not part of the solution, you're the problem. So everybody within my hearing has to know that my last call to you is to stand alongside the government, stand alongside law enforcement, stand alongside the efforts, because you are raising the children. You have the opportunity, more than the police officers, more than the teachers, more than the government, to influence how our young people grow, or how our young people come into our society as adults. But I also want to take some time to endorse Ryan Brathwaite. I've said that the last 23 years, it has been a tough journey for me, but I have no regrets. I have enjoyed representing you in Parliament for every single one of those, every single day of those 23 years. Sometimes I get cursed, a man pull a gun on me once. All these things I've had to deal with. So, Rand, I want to tell you that Parliament is not going to be a sweet bread. But I know that when I met you, I think you were 14 years of age. And I was canvassing with George Payne in Hackleton's Cliff. And his mom brought out this young man, and I think she brought him up because he was a Commonwealthian, and she knew that would pull a string in my heart. And I met this bony little fella. Never knew where he would end up. But on every occasion that I went back to Hackleton's Cliff, I always asked for him. And I saw him grow up into a young man. He was head boy at Combermere School. He was a star athlete at Combermere School. And I believe, and I'm not trying to boast, but I recognize that Ryan had promise. And he went to study engineering in Trinidad, and he stayed in touch with me. Every summer, he would come and shout me. And when he was finished, he came back and went to Light and Power. And I would always see him, and I always knew that he had a spark in him that would not go out. It was a spark that said, I want to serve my community. Rand, I want to welcome you to a life of politics. I want to welcome you to a place where you take over from where I have left off. And Tyrone, you said that I want him to get more votes than me. I want him to get 1,000 more votes than me. Sometimes when I have a minute, I watch a little IG, and former Prime Minister Keith Mitchell said that the person to succeed him was going to get more votes than him. And his explanation was this, that the people who like me have to like you, so you will get their votes. And then there are people who don't like me, but they're like you, so you will get their votes as well. And when you put all them together, you end up with far, far more votes than I do. But winning is not just about getting votes. Winning is what happens on election day. It is working that will secure the election victories after that. I have every confidence in Ryan Brathwaite. I endorse him wholeheartedly as my successor in this constituency. I have seen generosity in him that is unknown for people his age. Most people Ryan's age, I don't want to tell how old he is, but he's a young and vibrant man. He's still in his 30s. Most people Ryan's age are busy trying to figure out some things like which fete I going to and all kind of thing like that. Ryan is a young man who employs dozens and dozens of Josephines. I believe he employs in his company more people from St. Joseph than any other part of Barbados. Ryan was doing a project that he had not been paid for. And Ryan said to me, Dale, I keeping this thing going because I don't want to send home those fellas. Imagine that. He isn't being paid, but he kept that project going week after week after week after week because he knew in his heart what a problem it would cause if he sent home those fellas. That is a person who makes a sacrifice of his own comfort, of his own resources to ensure that his fellow man, the people who depend on him, will be comfortable. A lot of people lose sight of that. A lot of people lose sight of the obligation they have to their fellow men, not this fine gentleman. He is sincere. And you've seen it. You've met him. You've encountered him. You've talked to him. You know, when I first came to St. Joseph, there are some people in this crowd now who were not even born. And I remember well, because I was, as I said, a little bit more youthful, that the young people liked me and the old people liked me because they, you know, in an almost motherly way. Some of those young people now are in the 30s. The ones who were born the very first round are in the 20s. The point is that time marches on and people march on. The constituents that I came and found are not necessarily going to be the constituents that you are finding today. Their interests are going to be different. Their obligations are going to be different. And I urge you that whatever you do, you must be prepared to adjust how you relate to people. But I have no doubt that you will do a fine job. And as I said on the occasion of your nomination, Ryan, I will support you 100%. I will always be behind you to make sure you are in the spotlight, but I will never be too far away that I can't give a supporting hand. The people of St. Joseph deserve the best that you have to give them. And I know that you will not disappoint. But the people of St. Joseph also deserve the best that the Barbados Labour Party has to give them. And that is where I want to begin to wrap up what I'm saying to you. The Barbados Labour Party has not been a perfect government. We've said that from day one. We've never tried to be a perfect government. Any government will make some mistakes along the way. But I assure you that if there are any things that you feel that as an administration we did not do correctly or that we fell short of doing it to the highest standard, there was no malice or ill will in it. We simply tried to do the best that we could with what we had. And the last 8 years have been fraught with difficult decisions. When we came in, we had to deal with our high debt situation. And I'm no economist, but you know that we were severely in debt and were on the verge of defaulting on our loans. We had to take decisions about that. We had to take decisions about sending home some people so that the majority could stay employed. We had to make hard decisions during COVID. If you want to know when I got gray during the 2 years that we had COVID. That's when I got gray. And we made hard decisions then. And along the way, yes, we made some mistakes. In the beginning, we said don't wear masks. And then later on, we had to say, all right, we need to wear the mask. But things are always evolving. But as things evolve, we've always stood ready to change our stance, to change our position, so as to accommodate those changes. So we've always been flexible, but in the interest of Barbadians. We've always been humble. There have been many occasions when we've taken decisions as a government, and people have said, hold on a minute, we don't like this. And we've stopped, and we've engaged, and we've made changes where possible. At every step of the way. That is a government that cares. That is a government that is willing to listen to its people. How can you govern people if you're not prepared to listen to their views? When we come to you with a manifesto, as we will this weekend, and we say to you, this is our program for the next 5 years. This is what we want to do. It is developed not out of our own minds, but because we engage with people and get a feeling of what they're interested in having happen in our country. So if that is the case when we start a term, how can we go through the term and say to people, we don't want to hear from you? What we insist on doing is providing opportunities for our Barbadians to comment on the things that we do, and in every instance we've been prepared to be flexible and we've been prepared to change. That is what humility is. Humility is saying to people, we made a mistake, we're going to do better next time. The last administration felt that there was nothing wrong with the things they were doing, and they continued without listening to the people. We have learned that lesson. The years ahead are not going to be easy. The years ahead will see a lot of new challenges for Barbados, but we need a team for the times, and that team for the times is going to be led by the Honorable Mia Amor-Motley. The world over, I was privileged to see a discussion with some Jamaicans today to say that they wanted to trade our Prime Minister for theirs. The world over, Mia Motley is well respected. She is seen as a champion for climate change. She is seen as a champion for poor people. She is seen as a champion for the causes that make a difference in people's lives. That is the kind of leadership that we need today. So when we talk about a team for the times, it reminds me of when I came to government. Because on my little card, if any of you remember, it had a simple slogan, a man for the times. I offered myself to you as a person for the times that we had in 2003. And now almost 23 years later, we come back and offer you a new man for the times. We come back and offer you a team that has been refreshed because we have new individuals on the Barbados Labour Party team, as people like me and Nafa have decided to step aside so that a new generation of Barbadians can come and fill our shoes. The times ahead are going to be difficult, but the leadership provided by the Prime Minister and the team that she's taken to Parliament will be what we need to get over the difficult times. I know that sometimes you might worry, but at every step of the way, Barbados is in capable hands because, as the Prime Minister have always said, we got you. They've signaled to me that my time to speak has come to an end. I hope I will have another chance to speak in St. Joseph before the election is wrapped up. But I want to end by saying the people of St. Joseph have enriched my life. The people in St. Joseph had made me a better and more caring human being. I have a deep, deep sense of gratitude to all of you for your many kindnesses over the years. And I want to assure you that even though this is probably my last, if not maybe second last, speech on a political platform in this country, I am not going to be a stranger to St. Joseph. I will now have time to come and go by the canteen and sit down without having to run off and do this or do that. I will now have time to be able to go in my favorite ram shops and sit down in a short pants and a pair of slippers and a cap and enjoy myself. Ren, you are going to have to do the heavy lifting. That's going to be your job. And maybe in another 20 years you will find somebody to whom you will pass the baton. But this for me is not farewell. I will never be too far away. And while I'm passing the responsibility of taking care of this constituency to Ren, in other words, call him, you will find, I promise you, you will find that I will continue to be a friend of every Josephine, wherever you are, however you are. Good night, thank you, and God bless you.